So we want to pick right up where we stopped yesterday. But before we can do that, I need you to break your questions down. And so let's look at those real quick. I'll go over them while you break them down. Which one of the following is a problem in Mississippi during the time this story takes place? Number 2, in 1 or 2 sentences, summarize the issue Cassie and her brothers have with their school books. So, what's a summary means in 1 or 2 sentences, okay? And it can be longer than that, but it shouldn't be like a whole page, okay? And it does not need textual evidence. So I want you to summarize, why do they not want these books? 3, how does the author show that Cassie is protective of her brothers? And last but not least, does Cassie trust her mother, and how can you tell? So I'm going to tell you really from the get-go that for Google Classroom, question 3 is going to be a given because it is a right-on question. Okay. And we're going to do 4, 3, and 4. Okay. Now, let's take our book back up. Not many more pages. So, your evidence today will come from pages 26 through 31. Okay? So, you want to make sure that you add that in there. Okay? Your evidence is coming from 26 through 31. So we're at the part of our story where Cassie's little brother is about to get a spanking, and Cassie's trying to get the teacher to not do it. Sit down, she ordered as I hurried toward her with the open book in my hand. Holding the book up to her, I said, "See, Miss Crocker, see what it says? They give us these old books when they didn't want them no more." And she regarded me impatiently, but did not look at the book. Now, how could he know what it says? He can't read. Yes'm, he can. He been reading since he was 4. He can't read all them big words, but he can read them columns. See what's in that last row? Please look, Miss Crocker. This time, Miss Crocker did look, but her face did not change. Then, holding up her head, she gazed unblinkingly down at me. "See what they called us?" I said, afraid she had not seen. "That's what you are," she said coldly. "Now go sit down." I shook my head, realizing now that Miss Crocker did not even know what I was talking about. She had looked at the page and had understood nothing. "I said sit down, Cassie." I started slowly toward my desk, but as the hickory stick sliced the tense air, I turned back around. "Miss Crocker," I said, "I don't want my book neither." For the switch landed hard upon little man's upturned bottom. Miss Crocker looked questioningly at me as I reached up to her desk and placed the book upon it. Then she swung the switch 5 more times and, discovering that little man had no intention of crying, ordered him up. "All right, Cassie," she sighed, turning to me. "Come on and get yours." Well, by the end of the school day, I had decided that I would tell Mama everything before Miss Crocker had a chance to do so. From 9 years of trial and error, I had learned that punishment was always less severe when I poured out the whole truth to Mama on my own before she had heard anything from anyone else. I knew that Miss Crocker had not spoken to Mama during the lunch period, for she had spent the whole hour in the classroom preparing for the afternoon session. As soon as class was dismissed, I sped from the room, weaving a path through the throngs of students happy to be free. But before I could reach the 7th grade class building, I had the misfortune to collide with Mary Lou's father. Mr. Welliver looked down at me with a surprise that I would actually bump into him, and then proceeded to lecture me on the virtues of watching where one was going. Meanwhile, Miss Crocker briskly crossed the lawn to Mama's class building, and by the time I escaped Mr. Welliver, she had already disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. Mama's classroom was in the back, and I crept silently along the quiet hall and peeped cautiously into the open doorway. Mama, pushing a strand of her long, crinkly hair back into the chiffon at the base of her slender neck, was seated at her desk, watching Miss Crocker thrust a book before her. "Just look at that, Mary," Miss Crocker said, thumping the book twice with her forefinger. "A perfectly good book ruined. Now look at that broken binding and those footmarks all over it." Well, Mama did not speak as she studied the book. "And here's the one Cassie wouldn't take," she said, placing a second book on Mama's desk with an outraged slam. "At least she didn't have a tantrum and stomp all over hers. I tell you, Mary, I just don't know what's got into these children today. I always knew Cassie was rather high-strung, but little man, he's always such a perfect little gentleman." And Mama glanced at the book I had rejected and opened the front cover so that the offensive pages of both books faced her. "You say Cassie said it was because of this front page that she and little man didn't want the books?" Mama asked quietly. "Yes, ain't that something?" Miss Crocker said, forgetting her teacher training, school diction, and her indignation. "The very idea. That's on all the books, and why they got so upset about it, I'll never know." "Did you punish them?" asked Mama, glancing up at Miss Crocker. "Well, I certainly did. Whipped both of them good with my hickory stick. Wouldn't you have?" When Mama did not reply, she added defensively, "I had a perfect right to." "Of course you did, Daisy," Mama said, turning back to the book again. "They disobeyed you." But her tone was so quiet and non-committal that I knew Miss Crocker was not satisfied with her reaction. "Well, I thought you would have wanted to know, Mary, in case you wanted to give them a piece of your mind also." Mama smiled up at Miss Crocker and said rather absently, "Yes, of course, Daisy, thank you." Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out some paper, a pair of scissors, and a small brown bottle. While Miss Crocker, dismayed by Mama's seeming unconcern for the seriousness of the matter, thrust her shoulder back and began moving away from the desk. "You understand that if they don't have those books to study from, I'll have to fail them in both reading and composition, since I plan to base all my lessons around." And she stopped abruptly and stared in amazement at Mama. "Mary, what in the world are you doing?" Mama did not answer, and she had trimmed the paper to the size of the books and was now dipping a gray-looking glue from the brown bottle into the inside cover of one of the books. Then she took the paper and placed it over the glue. "Mary Logan, do you know what you're doing? That book belongs to the county. If somebody from the superintendent's office ever comes down here and sees that book, you'll be in trouble." Mama laughed and picked up the other book. "In the first place, no one cares enough to come down here. And in the second place, if anyone should come, maybe he could see all the things we need. Current books for all our subjects, not somebody's old throwaways. Desk, paper, blackboards, erasers, maps, and chalk." Her voice trailed off as she glued the second book. "Biting the hand that feeds you. That's what you're doing, Mary Logan, biting the hand that feeds you." And again, Mama laughed. "If that's the case, Daisy, I don't think I need that little bit of food." With the second book finished, she stared at a small pile of 7th grade books on her desk. "Well, I just think you're spoiling those children, Mary. They've got to learn how things are sometimes." "Maybe so," said Mama, "but that doesn't mean they have to accept them. And maybe we don't either." Miss Crocker gazed suspiciously at Mama. Although Mama had been a teacher at Great Faith for 14 years, ever since she had graduated from the Grandin Teacher Training School at 19, she was still considered by many of the other teachers as a disruptive maverick. Her ideas were always a bit too radical and her statements a bit too pointed. The fact that she had not grown up in Spokane County but in the Delta made her even more suspect, and the more traditional thinkers like Miss Crocker were wary of her. Well, if anyone ever does come from the county and see Cassie and Little Man's books messed up like that, she said, I certainly won't be accepting the responsibility for them. It will be easy enough for anyone to see whose responsibility it is, Daisy, by opening me any 7th grade book, because tomorrow I'm going to mess them up too. Miss Crocker, finding nothing else to say, turned imperiously and headed for the door. I dashed across the hall and awaited her exit, and then I crept back. Mama remained at her desk, sitting very still. For a long time she did not move. And when she did, she picked up one of the 7th grade books and began to glue again. I wanted to go and help her, but something warned me that now was not the time to make my presence known, and I left. I would wait until the evening to talk to her. There was no rush now. She understood. So, your Google Classroom questions are going to be question 3 and 4. Just like what we talked about on Tuesday, I think it would be good for you to put them in your journals. That's totally up to you, because you may need to go back and look at those prior to the test. But they definitely have to go into Google Classroom today. So that is your assignment, and that should take care of stuff for us, guys. So I will see you here tomorrow where we will be going over those. Bye.